This is one of those questions that has tripped people up for centuries, believers and skeptics alike. On the surface, it looks like a huge, glaring contradiction, right? But what if it's not a problem we need to solve? What if it's actually a profound clue, a revelation about who God really is? Okay, let's get into it.
This really is the heart of the whole thing. The Gospels are packed with stories of Jesus praying. He's up on mountains, he's out in the wilderness, he's even praying on the cross. And you're left thinking, wait a minute, if he is God, who's on the other end of the line? Is he just talking to himself? It's a question that seems to poke a hole in the whole idea of his divinity.
But here's what we're going to see. This question doesn't actually weaken the case for who Jesus is. It unlocks it. It opens up one of the deepest and most beautiful truths about God. Seriously, by the time we're done here, you're going to see Jesus' prayer life in a completely different way. Not as a confusing contradiction, but as a window looking straight into eternity.
All right, so before we can figure out why he prayed, we have to get really clear on what the Bible claims about who he is in the first place. So first things first, let's just look at one side of this mystery, the absolute, rock-solid biblical case for Jesus' divinity. I mean, listen to how precise this language is. The story of Jesus doesn't kick off in a manger in Bethlehem. Nope, it starts before time, before anything was created. John says the Word, who he makes clear as Jesus, was both with God, which tells you there's a relationship, they're distinct, and at the exact same time, the Word was God. They share the same divine being.
And then the Apostle Paul just doubles down on it. That word, fullness, is everything. He doesn't say a part of God or a reflection of God or the power of God lives in Jesus. He says all the fullness, the whole shebang. This isn't God sending a representative. This is God showing up himself in a body.
And if that wasn't enough, this verse is pretty much a mic drop. This is God the Father talking, and he looks right at the Son, and what does he call him? He calls him God. The Father himself confirms it. So the biblical evidence is overwhelming, which, just makes our original question feel even more intense.
Okay, so if the evidence for Jesus being God is so strong, why does it feel like there's a disconnect? Well, the problem isn't the evidence. The problem is an assumption that most of us make about God without even realizing it. And the clues to fix that assumption? They're hidden in plain sight, right from page 1 of the Old Testament.
Now hang on, just pause on that for a second. Read the words closely. God doesn't say, let me make man in my image. He says, let us in our image, plural. This is not a typo. This is not some weird translation quirk. The text, from the very beginning, is shouting that there is a relational reality inside of God himself.
And this gets right to the heart of our whole misunderstanding. See, we tend to think of God's oneness as just a single point, a singularity. But that's our modern idea, not the Bible's. The Bible consistently shows us a God who is profoundly one, yes, but also internally relational, a God who has community within himself.
Okay, now jump forward to this psalm. King David, a guy who would die for the belief that there is only one God, he writes this. You have the Lord, which is Yahweh, the personal name for God, speaking to my Lord, Adonai, a term for a divine ruler. You have two distinct divine persons in conversation. This isn't God talking to himself in a mirror. This is a relationship.
So, we've got a fully divine Jesus on one hand and a God who is relational on the other. What's the key that puts these two pieces together and makes the whole puzzle just click into place? It's the incarnation. See, Jesus didn't pray because he was less than God. He prayed because he became fully human.
Let's just be super clear about what this means, because it's so important. The incarnation is the belief that the eternal Son, who has always been God, took on a complete, full human nature. He didn't trade his divinity for humanity. He added humanity to his divinity. He became one of us, for us.
The book of Philippians actually walks us through this. Paul says Jesus was already equal with God, but he chose not to cling to that status, to those perks. He emptied himself, which doesn't mean he stopped being God. It means he voluntarily set aside his divine advantages. He chose to live with limitations, to be vulnerable, to be dependent. And when you're fully human and fully dependent, well, you have to pray. It becomes your lifeline.
And this sets up this incredible contrast in the Bible. You have the first Adam, back in the garden, who tried to become like God by choosing independence and disobedience, and it was a total disaster. Then you have Jesus, the last Adam. He was already God, and he chose the path of perfect, humble dependence and obedience, and he succeeded for all of us. Prayer is the sound of that successful dependence. So you see, Jesus' prayers aren't a sign that he's some lesser god or a demigod. Not at all. His prayers are a real-time, on-the-ground expression of the eternal relationship that has always existed within God, what we now call the Trinity. It's like we're getting to see the inner life of heaven step onto the stage of human history.
I mean, think about his baptism. It's the perfect snapshot of this whole thing. You've got the Son standing there in the water, you have the Spirit coming down from heaven, and you have the Father speaking from heaven, all happening at the same time. They're totally distinct, but in perfect, beautiful unity.
So here's the bottom line. When Jesus prayed to the Father, it wasn't some kind of theological crisis. It was a demonstration. We were getting a glimpse of the conversation of love that has been going on within the Godhead for all eternity. It's an eternal relationship being expressed in human time.
And this isn't just some dusty, abstract theology. Figuring out why Jesus prayed completely changes what prayer means for us. It turns this whole mystery into a deeply personal invitation.
Suddenly, this whole explainer comes right back to you and me. The point isn't just to solve a biblical puzzle. The point is to see the pattern, the path that God himself laid out for how to be human. And that leads to the real question, doesn't it? It stops being about who Jesus was praying to, and it becomes about who you are praying to. Are we going to try and live life on our own terms in that self-sufficient independence that always fails, or are we going to follow the path Jesus showed us, a path of relationship with a Father who listens?
In the end, the mystery of Jesus' prayer isn't a wall designed to keep us out. It's a door that's been swung wide open. Because Jesus, as our fully God and fully human representative, prayed, that throne room is now open to us. We can go boldly. It's an invitation to step right into that same conversation of dependence, trust, and love.